I'm more convinced than ever before that yes, Meghan Markle is definitely Duchess difficult. Why, oh, why, you may ask? Well, that's because of this exceedingly long, overly gushy, over the top, the lady doth protest too much article from Us Weekly, where 7 staff members go on the record, 5 even giving their names, telling how wonderful and amazing Prince Harry and Meghan Markle are. But is that really the case? Because if you read between the lines of what some are saying, it's very obvious that they're just playing their cards right, because I think they were forced to give their hand and go on the record about Harry and Meghan. And in particular, they make some astonishingly bad PR mistakes in this. I think something that comes from panic, not really a good PR strategy. This just screams absolute hysterical. I don't know what to do. We got to fix this. I got to get everybody to go on the record and tell the world how wonderful, amazing, gorgeous, gracious, lovely, and amazing I am. At least when it comes to Meghan Markle. Harry is barely mentioned in here. And we got some doozies, like Harry and Meghan treat their staff as if they're children. You know, they have the care of a parent to a child. I don't know about you, but that's not really been any of my employee-employer relationships. And then we also have the bit of, well, Archewell, we don't know why they're being investigated. They're not a criminal enterprise. And then I'm like, well, now I think you are a criminal enterprise, because you've mentioned that you're not a criminal enterprise, and nobody ever was making that allegation before. This is so horrifically done. I have worked closely with PR people. I've kind of been in PR a bit, and I know that this is absolutely 150,000% what you do not do in this particular situation. Because when you read again some of what these employees are saying, they're being both complimentary, but yet also not going too far. I'm not convinced at all that Meghan Markle is not Duchess difficult. In fact, like I said, I am more convinced than ever before that is exactly who she is, because she is going and addressing every single point here. And I'm going to give you even a reason why I think that pretty much everybody who was mentioned in this article probably also contributed to the Hollywood Reporter article, and why they are, let's say, doing different things in different publications. I will give you an explanation why what I think is going on here, and we will go over this article in detail, because people who are on Harry and Meghan's side will tout this as a great success. Look, they're pushing back. This is exactly what Harry and Meghan needed to do. Actually, no. All this has done is thrust that story into the media spotlight again, and they haven't really done anything except for reiterate exactly what the problems are. And again, we will go into this, but if you guys haven't been to Royal News Network before, hello, my name is Brittany. I provide compelling royal commentary. So if you guys want to hit that subscribe button, I would absolutely love to have you back. We have an amazing, fun time here. And I did just want to point out real quick here, my Ana Lucia diamonds. Yes, I'm still wearing my cross necklace here. I have my 7-stone eternity band, which I absolutely love, my 10th bracelet. And I'm wearing my X ring today, which I think is really fun. And so if you guys are interested in any of this, they are lab created diamonds. So great pieces of jewelry at a great price. So if you want to check them out, go ahead and follow the link up above. And if you use code ROYAL20, you shall save 20%. And I did also want to share out there as well. I have talked about this before, but it's been a while since I've mentioned it, but I do still have some Recollections May Vary shirts left. And I want to get out of the stock I have, because I'm looking to get some new merchandise in store in time for Christmas. I'm hoping to have some new stuff maybe available maybe towards the beginning of November. Lots of things, not only for this channel, but Royal Fashion News as well. But I would like to get out of all my stock of what I have right now, because I'll be working with a different company and we'll hopefully have a lot more things available. I know coffee mugs, hats. I know people will ask for a lot of different things, and I'm anxious to get all those ready and available, but I got to get rid of what I have. So if you guys are interested, feel free to follow the link up above. They are women's fitted shirts. They are a navy blue V-neck, and they just have Recollections May Vary, which is a quote from Her Majesty the Queen in regards to Meghan's allegations on the interview with Oprah Winfrey. So without further ado, let's get into this article. And I want to be clear here. Of course, I am making inferences, suggestions, I think would argue logical deductions, but you are also free to read into this what you will. I would suggest for you to read the article yourself and glean what you can from it. But I have worked in media, and I recognize that sometimes people have to play both sides. They have to play both sides. They can't really risk offending people who they might need a reference from too much, but they also, let's say, want to share the truth about what's going on, because I think this is what happened. Is I think actually pretty much everybody who was given a quote to this Us Weekly article, which is not a very reputable publication. I don't know why they didn't go to People magazine. I find that a little odd, although the guy who wrote the article wrote the Meghan's Friends article in People magazine. So that's sort of an interesting connection. But again, here's what I think. I think what happened was Harry and Meghan, and particularly Meghan, because that article in the Hollywood Reporter that where Meghan was such as difficult, a dictator in heels, and all those sorts of things. So when it comes to this Hollywood Reporter article, Meghan saw dictator in heels, Duchess difficult, throwing tantrums, 5 a.m. emails, can't make decisions, all these sorts of things. I think Meghan saw that, freaked out. And she wants to have you could say it, a trust or a loyalty test from her former staff members. She wants to suss out maybe who participated in this article. So this again is just my theory, but I think she or Harry, I think her, maybe Harry because they liked him better. And they made it clear in the Hollywood Reporter article that they liked him better. Contacted these staff members directly and asked that they go on the record. Now, if you are a staff member who was asked directly by your former boss, who you know is vindictive, nasty, so many things, you called her dictator in heels, that's just difficult. You live in a bit of fear of this crazy woman. And you are worried about how she might retaliate, you might go, yes, I will talk to Us Weekly. I will even go on the record because that is a litmus test. That is a test for these employees. And so whether or not they do it determines whether or not Meghan Markle, is continuing to suss out who gave that information. So I think, especially when it comes to like Josh Kettler, Catherine St. Laurent, those people, I think 100% they contributed to both. That would be my guess. I don't know that for sure, but that is just my deductive reasoning. Because it's interesting, some of these people and what they said, they're complimentary, but yet at the same time too, they're somewhat vague. This is not for some people, especially those who are higher ranking within the organization, who all left after a good period of years. Because what I want you to think about throughout this entire article, and I will mention it time and time again, is if it's so great, why do people continue to leave? If it's so great, wonderful, and amazing, why is everybody walking out the doors within months or maybe a year? If they're all walking out all the time, there is a problem. That's something that cannot be minimized. No matter how much Meghan Markle comes out and says how great and wonderful and amazing, like gracious, loving, and all this stuff she is, why do people keep leaving? That's a big question. That's a $50,000 question, because I firmly believe that this story would have died if Harry and Meghan had continued like the same staff for 5-6 years. They don't. They have people who are continuing to leave. One guy who left after just 3 months, and he left, and he did that because something wasn't working. And I think it wasn't working because Harry and Meghan weren't working. And again, you had to read between the lines here because this is very carefully done. Now, we don't know if they spoke on the phone or wrote something. Like if it was me, I would write something because then I could be very careful with my language. And some of these people, especially the higher ranking people, the quotes are very short, which indicates to me they only wanted to say a couple of things and they were done. And again, this doesn't bode as if they were just clamoring to change the narrative of the story. I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case at all. And I think they were basically forced to get their hand. Otherwise, they would be fully implicated in the Hollywood Reporter article. So I think they played their cards well. That way they can sort of keep going. Because again, they're all in the same industry. They're trying to keep good graces. But I don't think this will make the Hollywood Reporter stuff go away because they're good reporters. And so everybody knows they're probably good reporters. And so they're like, you went to Us Weekly? Like if they went to the New York Times, Wall Street Journal, something like that. No, but I think they went to Us Weekly in particular because Meghan could control the entire thing. I think probably Meghan's entirely responsible for this because she is freaking out yet again. I mean, she's not amending her behavior by treating her staff better. She's forcing them to tell the world how great, wonderful, amazing, lovely, gracious, and all those things that she is. You shouldn't have to say that. If you have to say that, if you have to force your staff members to go on the record, to me, that screams that that's not really what they think. So I would take this entire article off what they say with a grain of salt. And I'm going to tell you again why. We're going to go over it pretty much line by line. So just to start off with this article, I did want to say it was funny that this is under celebrity news. Even though there's royals, this is under celebrity news. Just wanted to point that out. So this editor-in-chief guy, he says that the staff members of Harry and Meghan's team came to him. I don't believe that. I just firmly do not believe that. I believe if they came to him, it was under the direct directive of Meghan Markle. And I'm going to use and say mostly Meghan Markle because I don't really think Harry had anything to do with this because he's in New York right now and he's going to go to London and he has this big PR push and now his wife has messed everything up. And what's really stupid again about this is that the story was starting to die a bit and now she's resurrected it. So we're talking about this again. And so it's something to go over again, the accusations. And yes, the Sussex squad will go, oh yes, finally, the truth is out there. But when you read this again, there are so many obvious PR bungles here that I'm like, are you serious? There's actually one thing in here that was a joke on a TV show because even people in Hollywood know that when you do this thing in PR, it's a big no-no. It's an absolute huge no-no. So again, we're going to go into this and we're not going to read the first part of it, but we're pretty much going to read. So this just goes over kind of what we have heard before about the Hollywood Reporter, things that she makes grown men cry. She can reduce grown men to tears. Now, what I will say about this is that the Sussex squad sort of embraced this for a while, going, oh yeah, Meghan's boss babe, and she needs to write a book about this. And now they'll just go, oh, she never did that. Of course she never did that. So it's like, what do you guys really believe? If you're willing to flip-flop all the time, what do you really believe? And now people maybe can say that about me or something, but I'm pretty consistent. And so I don't think that's necessarily an issue. And so again, they have lost 18 employees between their time in the UK and their time in the US. 18. And they have a small staff. This is not a company of 100. This is a company of maybe 8. So if they've lost 18 employees, that's a heck of a lot of people. Now, maybe at most they have 10 or something. So we're going to go into this because they decide to talk. They painted a different picture to us. So Ben Browning is the first former head of content. He was part of the Harry and Meghan documentary and left after his contract expired in 2023. So he says his experience with the company and with Meghan and Harry in general, which I find interesting that they mentioned Meghan first, because again, this is really about correcting the things about Meghan, was positive and supportive, adding, we will all continue to be friends. The narratives we've seen suggesting the contrary are untrue, which is odd, but I guess maybe if the former staff members all decided to talk at the same time, that could be true. But I think that the narrative things is key here. We've seen the narrative suggesting that the contrary is untrue. And it's sort of interesting. Like he's more, I think, definitive than some of the others here, but I just find that the suggesting the narratives are untrue. The narratives, not the truth. I know the truth and this is not true at all. It's like the narratives we seem suggesting, like they're massaging the language rather than definitive. So this is more vague rather than being definitive. I know everything they're saying about her is untrue. This is more, well, the narratives we've seen suggesting the contrary are untrue. So he's sort of towing the line here in his language. And so there are ways to be actually much more direct here that he's not being, which suggests to me that he's not fully on board with the idea that Meghan Markle is this glorious creature that she believes that she is. So we go on to one-time chief of staff, Catherine St. Laurent, who barely lasted maybe a year and then was on as like a supervisory role. And she says she has remained close to the couple. And the time I spent working with Prince Harry and Meghan was incredibly meaningful to me. So this is, again, interesting there. The time I spent. So she's talking about herself, obviously with Harry and Meghan, but meaningful to me. So it could be meaningful in a variety of ways, that maybe she liked the work she got to do, but not really working for them. So it's not really this thing where she's saying how great and wonderful, amazing Harry and Meghan are. She's actually not really saying that. She's saying I and me. This was about her internal experience, not really her experience with them, if that makes sense. At least that's how I'm reading it. Maybe I'm overreading it. Let me know in the comments. So Josh Kettler, he was interesting. So he left in August and he told Richard Eden that he had quit because he knew Harry and Meghan would try to spin the narrative that he was only a temp. And he wanted Richard to Eden, no, I wasn't a temp. I was there for 3 months and I quit. And he knew Harry and Meghan would try to do it to the contrary. And it's interesting because they say departure sparked more negative press. Yes, because he left again. Another person left. Again, Catherine St. Laurent, Ben Browning, none of them are still there. Now, Ben Browning, you could excuse that because he was just on a contract basis. So he might not have had to deal with them quite as much. So he might be like, well, I was just on contract, so I got out. It's fine. And again, they're wanting to keep their future job, but he's still not being super definitive. Again, there's more direct ways to say what he was saying, which suggests to me that he didn't want to be totally straight black and white in the case of Ben. So Josh, though, even more interesting. He says he was warmly welcomed by both Harry and Meghan. Warmly welcomed. But was he warmly managed? That's a different question. And he said they are dedicated and hardworking. He tells us of the pair, it was impressive to witness. Now, this is what I think. And this is just, again, my theory. This is just my thought. But again, he left. He tried to spin a different narrative. I think he's behind the Hollywood Reporter article in many ways. And he obviously knew Harry and Meghan like to spin things in a way that is unhelpful to their former employees. So what I think is funny is that he was thinking it was impressive to witness two buffoons be as dedicated and hardworking and yet also accomplish absolutely nothing. That's another way you could phrase it. That's another way you could phrase it. Now, that is, again, it's just my opinion. But the thing is, he's not there. Ben Browning isn't there. Catherine St. Laurent isn't there. Why aren't they there? Because they quit. And most of them quit within a year. Josh Kettler, 3 months. Why? Because it wasn't a good place to work. If you like working for a place, if you are fulfilled, if you find the vision compelling, you still want to work there. If you leave, that means you don't want to work there. Why don't you want to work there? Well, because I think they're bad bosses. And none of this still addresses the question, why the revolving door? None of this so far, and these are people high up, doesn't address the revolving door of staff. That's the thing. You still have the revolving door of staff. Why is that? It's because there is obviously something going wrong. And it's something to do with you. That's the only way you can read it. So Ashley Hansen, their global press secretary, which may have been the person wearing a Harry and Meghan monogram pin, which I was going to do a video on this today. I might just do a short and do a longer video tomorrow because I have thoughts about that. But she talks about, and she's still employed with them. Mind you, she's still employed with them. And if Meghan is Duchess difficult and people are terrified to work with her, what else are you going to say other than that she's an amazing person? So let's get it. Bosses couldn't have been more supportive when she needed a serious surgery. And this, I think, is creepy. When I told them, I was met with the kind of concern and care a parent would express for their own child. They're your boss. They're not your parents. Are they treating you like a child? Because that's creepy. Are you thinking they're your mommy and daddy? Because that's also creepy. This is weird. This is a weird statement. It's weird. It does not play well. It's creepy. If she's treating you like you're her child, it's creepy. It's not cute. It's not funny. It's not fun. It's creepy. 100% creepy. She says, I was asked what I needed and how and if they could help. And I was told to take as much time as I needed, Hansen says of Harry and Meghan, send flowers and care packages, but most profoundly to me, because again, this is all about addressing what the allegations are against Meghan. Meghan would personally reach out to my husband daily to make sure we were both okay and had support. It meant so much to him because apparently she has no parents because Harry and Meghan are her parents, by the way. It meant so much to him and even more to me. You don't realize how much that kind of kindness and thoughts means until you need it. Okay, you gotta stop. And this gets worse throughout the whole thing. It's too much. It's too much. It seems weird. They seem to have an unhealthy dynamic as a staff. They seem to have a very unhealthy dynamic. And it's kind of kind, but it's a little overbearing. Why does your boss need to call your husband every single day to make sure you're okay? Is she calling to make sure you're okay? Or is she calling wondering when you're getting back to work? Is she calling wondering, oh, is she doing good? Okay, did she get that report done? That could also be going on behind the scenes.
And I did also notice as I was going back through and editing this that it doesn't actually state that she called them, just that she personally reached out. I made the inference that she called, so I just wanted to clarify that real quickly.
I just don't totally believe this. And again, it's so much, it gets even gushier as we go on. And it's it doesn't come even across as what real business people do. It's just bizarre. And again, it's kind, and I've worked in places where I think there is an enormous level of support for people who are going through things. But I want to expect my boss to call my partner, or, if I'm staying at my parents because I need something, my parents or something, calling them every day going, oh, how's she doing post-surgery? That's just creepy. You don't need to be. Here's the thing. They're overly involved in their staff's lives. If this is true, they're overly involved. And they're creating like this pseudo found family thing, which is weird. It's an unhealthy dynamic. It's an unhealthy dynamic because you do need separation. Your boss isn't your parent. Your employee is not your child. It's a boss-employee relationship. That's what it should be. None of this sounds like a healthy dynamic, which could result in Duchess difficult situations. Why? Because it is not a healthy dynamic. None of this is healthy. Okay, so now we get to, there's just the normal hiccups. It says there's little doubt the company, which employs a small team of roughly 16 full-time employees, is comprised of the Archwell Foundation, their charitable nonprofit, a production side, which deals with the audio works like podcasts and their Netflix deal, and communications. Markle's new lifestyle brand is a separate entity, which is fascinating. That's actually really, really interesting. I didn't catch that the first time. So that seems to be, to me, that's not part of anything they're doing. It's our whole separate thing, which again goes with my thing of Meghan is setting up a separate future. And sometimes it seems like Harry is too. A future where they're going their separate ways and not with each other. Anyways, and Hanson, so this is Ashley, has said, it has had some growing pains. Archwell is not unlike a startup. It's relatively young. Two things can be equally true. You can be a great leader and still have turnover. No boss or company is immune to that. But generally, that doesn't happen. If you're a good leader, generally you keep staff. If they believe in your cause, they hang around. They left because it's not a great company to work for. And that's the bottom line. And I don't think they're great leaders. They're not great leaders. They make poor decisions all the time. That's what the thing with the Hollywood Reporter article, because again, we've seen this situation play out. They always seem to make the worst decisions in any given situation. Like doing these faux royal tours. Why are you doing them? It's just bizarre. You can't make any money from them. They're a waste on the country's resources. The country gets nothing in return. You don't really get anything in return. You get headlines. Meghan Markle desperately needs somebody to give her a microphone, so she's super excited about that. But there's nothing else accomplished because there's nothing else to accomplish, really, because there's nothing deeper they can bring. And I have said this, and I think this is still insanely true, is they need real jobs. They keep trying to do this full royal routine, this cosplay royal routine. It's not working. They can't make any money from it. And they neglect the things that actually make them money. And when you look at ARO overall, I mean, that's an epic train wreck. I've been on the record since it started going, this is a horrifically bad business practice. It's been 6 months. We have no single product from American Riviera Orchard. So far as we're aware, it's in trademark hell. It might not even make it to the shelves by the time for Christmas. And we don't even know what's really supposed to be about. She has told us nothing. She's told us nothing. It's a horrible, horrible business practice. And so just to say that great leaders still have turnover, sure, but generally not. Generally not. They have normal turnover. Harry and Meghan have an excessive level of turnover. So it adds a current employee who asked to remain anonymous, which I find interesting, that some employees, current ones, were able to remain anonymous and others had to go on record. So again, very interesting dynamic. They said people leave at any company. They get new opportunities, change their careers, or feel the role isn't the right fit. My other thing here is that I think Harry and Meghan are fulfilling roles with people who are highly accomplished and giving them nothing to do. Or they're giving them things to do, and then Meghan Markle wants to change everything they're doing, and they get frustrated and leave. If you are good managers, you hire the roles exactly as you need them to be filled and fit, nothing more, nothing less. And then they also admit they are also sometimes let go. So they fired people. Now, granted, you do fire people, but are you firing them because they did the job poorly? Did you hire the wrong person for the wrong job? Like, all this to me screams bad business practices. Because yes, sometimes somebody can't fulfill the role. That does happen. But also, they're so small at this point. Should you not be able to? And they're like hiring the best people. How are you needing to fire people? Why are you needing to fire people? It's just a little weird. It's just a little weird. It says those decisions are part of doing business. Hansen maintains that Harry and Meghan have no hard feelings towards anyone who's left. They want people to grow and have opportunity, whether that's within or outside the company. Well, what is it? Is it a company, a philanthropic organization, a production house? What is it? That's the other thing, too. There's too many branches of it, and they're all conflicting. A philanthropic organization is not the same as a business, nor is it the same as a production house. Like, all of this stuff is competing and it's not working, and everything is tied together. We've heard this before too. There was another article recently talking about how there's so much overlap between the different branches. And that's true. And again, it goes to terrible business management. Harry and Meghan need one single vision right now. And their vision right now to be, we need a successful business. That's not what they're creating. They're creating a mess. It's a self-imposed mess because, again, the creation of the Archewell Foundation is not about actually helping people. It's a way to avoid some taxes, and it's also a way to still look royal. But they're not royal anymore. You guys have left that role. You got to find a different role, but they can't seem to do that. They're like in this weird thing where they're trying to be in all worlds and failing. And this is a reflection of that. Good vibes only. The current anonymous staffer says colleagues have been dumbfounded by the claims, adding, it's clear where this type of commentary is coming from. It's likely made up from someone who's disgruntled. It's like, yeah, people are disgruntled because you're terrible people to work for. It's happened to when they were royals. It's happening now. It's like the same thing. It's the same thing. Now, Browning appears to be a little bit more like adding more to this, which is sort of interesting because the other people up top, as far as I remember, don't add anything. And he says, the narrative is simply a predictable attempt at creating intrigue through sowing false conflict. That's really cumbersome. That's weird. That's odd. Again, he's using some very odd phrasing here. And so to me, again, that speaks as someone who's trying to make sure he still leaves doors open, but also doesn't want to fully commit either. So what? It's a simply predictable attempt at creating intrigue through sowing false conflict. We're creating intrigue? Sure. But isn't creating intrigue a good thing? Because you're creating interest, right? Again, doesn't make much sense. The office culture is positive. They say, this is the first company I've worked for where I like every person, says the source. Harry and Meghan picked the best from every field and watered the seeds for them to flourish. We have an enormous microscope on us, but good things are happening. Okay, number one. This actually sounds like something Meghan Markle would say. Every field watered with the seeds for them to flourish. She says these kind of things. Again, it's sort of word salad nonsense. Honestly, this kind of seems like simply a predictable attempt at creating intrigue through sowing false conflict. It's like ridiculously convoluted. Just be much simpler. That's actually what a PR person would tell you, because this could, again, be interpreted badly. And to say every field and watered the seeds for them to flourish just sounds ridiculous. It does. It sounds ridiculous. And all this makes me think more is that this is a desperate attempt for a desperate woman trying to fix the bad PR that is her own fault. That's the only thing I can think of, because it just doesn't make any sense otherwise. Staffers outside the production team. So now we're getting outside the production team, which has an office in Hollywood, work remotely most of the time, including Harry and Meghan, who share an office at their Montecito home, which is weird. Again, I wouldn't want my husband in my office, just saying. Occasionally, staffers will gather at the couple's mansion or meet at Soho Works. Again, Soho House, connection there. The teams find ways to work together in shared spaces, says a former staffer, adding that everybody welcome to request in-person meetings with Harry or Meghan whenever or whenever. The Sussexes get dressed up for formal events, but they sometimes show up at virtual meetings in baseball hats and T-shirts or to impress. Look how normal they are. I hate this stuff. It's ridiculous. And it's like, so, I mean, I doubt like the lower level admin assistant can really ask for a personal one-on-one with Harry or Meghan. Maybe Harry, not Meghan. Again, I just don't believe any of this. And I just think it's kind of nonsense because what I get through this too is that there's no working being done at Archewell. There's no work, because it talks about how great lunches we have, how great the food is. Nobody talks about the work, really. If you notice throughout this, nobody really talks about the work. because there's not any work being done. And sometimes I think too, that is what sort of maybe makes some people leave. They're like, well, I don't get to do anything. So I'm just going to go home. Why do I want to be here? I want to do a different job where I can accomplish something. And this sounds like really all they do is do random virtual meetings and try to look important and like they're working when they're not really working. Do you get my drift? Because this is just weird. During his weekly Zoom calls, Harry will chat with staffers. He's fun. He definitely takes the work seriously. But when a meeting starts, the first 5 or 10 minutes are all pleasantries like, how was your weekend? Or how's the construction going at the house? And the ex-employee says, as a group, they go to happy hours and have holiday parties. We're planning a karaoke night, adds a current staffer, because we have 2 people getting married on the team. Okay, that's great. But again, strikes me as a bit of an unhealthy dynamic. Why are you having parties and going to happy hours all the time? I guess people do that, but it just seems a little weird. And then also too, it's like first 5 to 10 minutes of every meeting are just chatting about pleasantries. Now I remember going to meetings and now I work for myself. So I guess I have a meeting with myself. It's kind of weird, but it would get annoying to me after a while. Like sometimes we would do pleasantries. That's usually just as we're trying to wait for everybody to arrive. And then we start the meeting. If you're wasting 5 to 10 minutes all the time at your meetings, you're not getting much accomplished. This strikes me as a business where people kind of fake working, go and have happy hours and holiday parties after work, going to karaoke, and not really accomplishing much. And we've seen this reflected in their work. Harry and Meghan don't accomplish a lot. Why? Because of this right here. They're partying, their staff is partying, basically. I mean, like adult partying. Let's not crazy teenager or college partying. But I would say I don't see a lot of dedication to work here. They don't even talk about how great the missions are, really anything. Like they talk about kind of random things related to this, but there's not a lot being accomplished. And the thing is, again, we see this reflected in the work. And again, some of these employees are ex-employees. Ex-employees, why did you leave? Why'd you leave? If it was so great, if Harry is so nice, all the pleasantries, how was your weekend? How's the construction? They're going to happy hours, karaoke nights, all these sorts of things. If it's so great, why'd you leave? That's what's not being answered here. Because all we have is how wonderful and amazing everything is, but not why anybody's leaving en masse. So sweet gestures, other kind acts from the Duke and Duchess. When I adopted my dog, the next day I had a luxury brand leash and new collar on my doorstep, says a former staffer, who adds that parents to be are given new gifts and top-notch secondhand stuff. I'm going to guess the new gifts were like the cheaper things, and then the secondhand stuff from the couple themselves, like unused car seats and baby items that they no longer need. During the Columbia trip, the Duke and Duchess texted a team leader to take everyone out for drinks. Okay, let's dissect this. Number 1, I would be unbelievably creeped out if my boss sent me something that arrived on my doorstep. Why wasn't it on their desk? Yes, I guess they work from home or whatever, but I just find it creepy. Why are you delivering stuff to my house? It's just weird. Let alone, it almost sounds like they personally dropped it off on the doorstep. That's even creepier. I don't think they did, but it's just weird. It's just weird. And parents to be given new gifts and top-notch secondhand stuff, like unused car seats and baby items they no longer need. I mean, it's nice. I'm sure Catherine and William have probably done that with their staff, but they also have family they do that with too. So they might not have needed to do that quite as much with their staff members because they do it, within their family, because, they have family relationships that, kind of thing Harry and Meghan hate. And it's nice, but it's a little weird. And then they texted a team leader to take everyone out for drinks. Well, people kind of do that on trips. Like, this is nothing all that special. I mean, the luxury brand dog leash and collar is creepy because I can buy are you saying I can't buy my dog my own collar and leash? Like, why in the world am I getting a dog if I can't get my own leash and collar? Like, I guess it's luxury, sure, but it's a little weird. Like, why are you delivering it to me? I just find that really creepy. I would just be creeped out if my boss delivered something directly to my door. I'd just be weirded out. And because again, you're not, what you're seeing here, I think, is an unhealthy dynamic and an unhealthy separation between work and personal life, I think. They want to take care of us, the current employee says. Meghan will do things like you mentioned on the call, your skin is bothering you. I put together a kit for you. Creepy. You don't know why the person's skin is bothering them. It could be a medical thing. Like, why are you giving them a kit? It's just weird. And during these visits to the couple's Montecito home, no one departs empty-handed. Whenever staff go to their house, they leave with a basket of fresh fruit, fresh flowers, and fresh eggs. Oh, the loveliness that is Meghan Markle. And again, you can give things and give gifts to people and also be a horrific person behind the scenes too. Two things can be true at the same time, as Ashley said, or whoever said that. Two things can be true at once, So again, I don't understand quite what I'm supposed to get from all this, except for the fact that Meghan Markle is wonderful, amazing, and perfect and all these sorts of things. And why don't people love her? Because they should just love her. Again, it's trying too hard. You don't need to say all this. I would love to know. I should do it, but I probably won't. How many words this is? I would say this is 4 times longer than the Hollywood Reporter article, because good writing is about brevity. And there's nothing in here except for overly gushy nonsense about how wonderful Meghan is. Very little about Harry, but how wonderful she is. And how many of these initiatives sometimes are led by Harry. And again, it's like taking the team out to drinks. Like, a lot of people do that. Like, that's not that exciting. Like, are we supposed to applaud them for doing the bare minimum? And so here's where it starts to get into Meghan directly addressing some of the accusations and things. So again, she's very, very much wanting to directly reference every single thing written in the Hollywood Reporter article. So here she goes. Meghan's known for giving credit where it's due. If you're in a meeting and a great idea is referenced, she makes sure to give props to the person who generated the idea, says the former employee. After a big trip, every employee gets a personal email thanking them for their contribution and making it a success. So my question is, could they give an example of a great idea that is referenced by Meghan and given credit to somebody else? Because they definitely don't give credit to people in public. They don't do it in public. So I guess they just do it in private. So maybe the name American Riviera Orchard came from a employee. Will Meghan admit that? Or will she said, was driving one day and I saw a bank named American Riviera Bank. And I thought to myself, oh, wouldn't it be lovely if I named my company American Riviera Orchard? Something like that. Would she actually give people credit? Like, she's never publicly given people credit, like her employees credit for coming up with certain ideas. So, I mean, and granted, that's somewhat the situation when it comes to a public figure, but it's like, if it was an employee's idea to give drum sets to the kids in Colombia, why don't Harry and Meghan say that? Unless she really doesn't mean it. They only do it privately. And then they get a personal email thanking them for their contributions. I'm so surprised. Why aren't they getting a calligraphied letter with her special cursive telling them how wonderful they are? Anyways, interesting. Sorry, I'm getting a little snarky. But I just hate this stuff because some people will just buy this. But when you actually know what has gone on the last several years, how the bullying allegations in the Hollywood Reporter mirror almost exactly what was said in England 3 years ago. It's like frustrating to see like this nonsense come and them try to spin it so much. But it's also just funny to watch her kind of bury herself at the same time, because this one is particularly illuminating. So it says, the former employee says Meghan is the first person to wish staff members a happy birthday and is compassionate and understanding when it comes to illness or family commitments. I don't really buy that personally. And what a woman said who was connected to some like producers on Suits or something is that she would ask you about your family, Meghan, but there was never anything beyond that. She's very surface level. She won't really ever get to know you. You don't ever really get to know her. And this is interesting. As for rumors of Meghan's penchant for tantrums, the current staff member says they have never heard her yell. Explaining the Duchess gives clear direction as is solution-oriented. Okay, 2 things here. Number 1, just because you haven't heard her yell doesn't mean she hasn't yelled. And you're already saying in this article that she might yell. Again, it's best actually to reference directly what was said in the Hollywood Reporter article, because now we're thinking she yells. Because the word yell was never mentioned in the Hollywood Reporter article. But now I think she yells because you said you never heard her yell. So have other people heard her yell? Because you can say you never heard her yell, but you know people who have said other people have heard her yell. So because I had a business situation where that was the case, where somebody said, well, this person in particular has been known to yell and scream at people. And I never experienced that myself, but I take their word for it. But I never personally experienced it. So I could truthfully say to a certain extent, they have never heard her yell. But just saying the yell means, I think, that they know people who have heard her yell. Because again, you're saying something or you're not saying something. Again, this is all about how language works together. And again, I've come at this because I've worked with PR people. I've seen good PR. I've seen bad PR. And so again, they're putting additional ideas out there, which is why this is a horrifically bad PR response. Horrifically, terribly, horribly bad, because you're putting additional ideas in people's minds that she yells. That's what they're doing here.
And what I didn't reference here, which I meant to, is that in the Hollywood Reporter article, it specifically says she throws noisy tantrums. It does not say she yells. It never says she yells. It's just that she throws tantrums. So that could be, and I post this in my original video on the topic, that could mean she slams doors, she throws things off tables. Like, it doesn't mean that she yells. But in response to thinking she throws tantrums, that their first response is, well, she doesn't yell, makes me sort of think, and again, in this really weird way, well, if you're inferencing that she yells, how did that idea get in your mind? And now they've given us a specific situation that we can consider is that, well, she yells. That is how she throws tantrums. Again, don't know this for sure. This is all supposition. But you never want to give an additional idea to an audience that you didn't anticipate. It's all about streamlining, keeping things simple and easy. And she is not doing this here.
And then they directly respond to a quote from Meghan's archetypes, which was used by Hollywood Reporter to say that Meghan has argued before that she's not demanding, she's just clear. And then they say, Clearing the Duchess gives clear direction and is solution-oriented. So she's like, you're not being difficult, you're being clear. And so she's directly referencing that.
Of her Archetypes podcast, Meghan passionately opened up about being labeled as demanding during a conversation with Issa Rae.
You're allowed to set a boundary. You're allowed to be clear.
Yep.
It does not make you demanding. It does not make you difficult. Makes you clear.
Which is crazy to me. It's crazy to me. They're directly referencing that. And solution-oriented, what solutions? You don't come to any solutions. It's crazy. And then, oh, this is great. And those reports about firing off demanding emails at 5 a.m., which is something that started in the UK, apparently continued to California. Meghan's official email signature reads, and we got this from GBN News as well. My working day may not be your working day. Please do not feel obligated to reply to this email outside your normal working hours. I have so much issue with this. Number one, if you have to put it in an email response signature, it is already a problem. You don't put something like that in there unless you're actually worried that it's a problem. Number one. Number two, in the world they work in, your staff members do have to be on point 24/7. That's what being part of a PR team does. Now, there's some people who will not be, but I guarantee you, at least half their staff members need to be on call 24/7. They need to be. Why? Because you're responding to PR things. Now, the thing is, I don't think everything she's emailing at 5 a.m. is regards to PR, but if there's a story breaking in London, like say Charles' cancer diagnosis, do you want to just wait and be informed at 9 a.m. or would you rather somebody inform you at 5 a.m.? If you're Meghan and Harry and you see that at 5 a.m., aren't you going to send out an email at 5 a.m.? And don't you want to respond at 5:15? There's actually situations where sending emails and responding at 5 a.m. does work. So it's almost bad here to push back against that because it's not accurate. I know because of the time differences and everything, they have to be on point. They will probably email people about things late at night and or early in the morning. That's just kind of the life they live. So to just say this overall doesn't even work or doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. And if you have to put it in your work email, that means it's true. It's true. And you've been called out for it. So now you're sensitive about it. Now you want to make sure you overdo it. Again, this is all an overcorrection. The best thing to do sometimes is let sleeping dogs lie. What she's doing now is overcorrecting and putting more information out there than there needed to be. Again, PR is about brevity. This is not brevity. Meghan Markle could have even written this herself. 100%. She could have written this herself, given it to Us Weekly. They would have published it probably as is, to be honest. 100%. And again, horrifically bad PR. I can't think of any PR person that would go, this is a good response. None of them would say that. Because again, you're giving them too much information. Now we know Meghan's official email signature reads, my working day may not be your working day. Please do not feel obligated to reply to this email outside your normal working hours. Now we know that exists. What else is she not telling people? Again, what else is she going to tell us? We get something juicier, which is awesome. But again, brevity is your friend. Brevity in PR is 150% your friend. Again, I know PR people, they would cringe at this. This is not good public relations. It's not a good response. It's a terrible, horrible, awful response. They're given too much. There's too much to dissect here, as I am doing. And you're giving people weird things, like they see their employees as children. They treat them as children, apparently. They don't really seem to have a healthy dynamic between their staff because they're like overly found family, which is sort of weird. And now we know that she doesn't yell, which means she could yell because nobody said she yelled. They said she threw tantrums. But now you're telling us she yells. Again, all this stuff we could be avoided. And then this is the best one. This is the best one of this is why you don't talk. This is why you don't talk. Okay. So this is on the defense. Loyal staff members take the criticism to heart. We're here for a reason, says a current team member. Then why do all of them leave? Why do so many people leave? If you're here for a reason, why do you leave? And then, if you come for our bosses, you're coming for us. This isn't a criminal organization. We're trying to do good. Oh my gosh. Again, it's PR 101. Why are you telling us you're not a criminal organization? Because now all I can think of is that you're a criminal organization. Nobody has said that. No one has said that. No one. You're the first person to. And so now because you think we think you're a criminal organization. Now I do think you're a criminal organization because you're thinking it and you're closer to it than I am. I remember thinking this. I just remember seeing this and going, oh gosh, really? Really? And again, don't do this. Don't do this. It's like in a job interview and kind of slipping that you had this job that you got fired from that you didn't really want to talk about, that you didn't put on your resume. Well, now then the person interviewing you is going to want to ask you about it because you put it out there. You put things out there, people are going to want to know. Now you put out there, this isn't a criminal organization, which means that some people, maybe even people within the team, because we didn't say that, nobody in the public has said that it's a criminal organization. I don't think it is. But why are you saying it? Don't say it. Again, I can't think of any PR person that would go, yeah, this is a good idea. Again, this screams Meghan Markle because it's too much. And she always said that she overcorrects too much. And it would just be better to have let it ride and just let your work speak for itself. Because right now it's not doing that. A second former staff member, again, there were 7 people who contributed to this, most of them former, 2 or 3 maybe current. And again, just saying, why'd you leave if it's so great? Why'd you leave? Recalls asking for a break during a low point in their lives and says, Harry and Meghan were more than happy to give them a time off. No questions asked. I needed to be totally off the grid. They couldn't have been more supportive and even paid me during my leave. It's so in their nature to lean in and support and to take into consideration that there is a human behind the shop. Okay. Number 1, if you're a former employee and took time and went completely off the grid for maybe weeks or months, maybe that's why you're a former employee. Maybe. And I find that a little weird. Because, yeah, sometimes you do need to take a break from things. I get that. But at the same time, in the olden days, you really kind of take a break and kind of people got on. So if you're like taking like weeks upon weeks of break, like why? Were you taking a break and needed to be totally off the grid because of Harry and Meghan? Now that's what I think. Just that thought just came to my mind. Because you paid me time off because you drove me crazy and I needed a mental health break because of you. And they gave them that. Now that's what I'm thinking, right? Right? And I wasn't thinking that before, but I'm thinking that now. Why? Because Harry and Meghan put that out there. Again, brevity would have served them so well here. And then we have this Mandana. Yeah. She says this, and this again, oh, so good. Because it's again, too much. Part of the profound injustice. That injustice word is key. Because again, I think it's kind of trying to make this about race. When it's not, it's just about her treating her employees not well. And again, if you're a former COO, why aren't you still with them? Why couldn't you not grow there? You were only there 18 months, by the way. That's not a long time. She says part of the profound injustice of having to speak publicly in light of these endless and damaging narratives. And I like how, again, they say narratives, because they're implying that they're false, but at the same time, too, it's like, why are you saying narratives when you're just saying, I know these stories people are sharing are false? Or it's like, I know what Harry and Meghan are. And so she kind of goes on to say that so much of the kindness, mentorship, and support that Harry and Meghan share with others happens quietly behind the closed doors. Then why did they leave? Why have 18 people left? If they're so wonderful and amazing, why have they turned over their entire staff already? Like, they've turned over their entire staff constantly. Why? Why? We don't even know about like the private staff, like housekeepers, nannies that have turned over. We know at least one person was fired after, like, the night nurse was fired after like a day or something. Like, how many of those people have turned over? We have no clue how many people they've turned over. And this is, again, I feel like this is comedy gold. She says, I'll never forget sitting on the floor in the kitchen while Meghan was feeding Princess Lily, which I thought Lily was supposed to be Lili. Did they change it? Because it was supposed to be a little bit, I don't know. And cold calling a dozen senators. Their reactions were unbelievable to ask them to advocate for paid leave. Who cares? How am I in the world supposed to think that she's an awesome friend because she was a political activist? Like, this doesn't make any sense. It's terrible. And then Diane and Meghan traveled to Uvalde, Texas, which still is one of the most disgusting things I've ever seen anybody do. So she could parade around and look mournful and force herself on grieving parents. Like, seriously, it's so cringy. After the tragic 2022 shooting, for hours, Meghan sat in a room with grieving families, going one by one to each person, hugging and crying with them, she recalls to us, noting that Meghan has since kept in touch with families affected by the tragedy. And I'm like, why? Why are you there? It's creepy. Why are you capitalizing off of somebody else's tragedy? Why are you infringing yourself on someone else's grief? It's creepy. It is creepy. It's weird. And it's selfish. It was a selfish act to do that. It was selfish because she went right in front of a bunch of cameras. You can't tell me she did not know there were 1,000 camera people there. She knew. And she brought them cheap Costco snacks. Costco is a warehouse here in the States that you can go and get stuff in bulk. She didn't send them Panera, although I would say right now Panera is not my favorite place, but she gave them cheap snacks and then goes around and is hugging and like pushing herself on people in grief. It's weird. It's creepy. It's so disturbing. And of course, we didn't know that before. We didn't know, except for now Diane has told us that she went around and hugging all of them and that she still keeps in touch, but really only with one family. Because I think everybody else is like, Oh, so she says, while she worked with the Sussexes, she grew close to them personally. Some of my favorite memories were during our weekly meetings in their Montecito home, where Meghan always seemed to serve the most incredible lunches, snacks, and her latest beautiful concoction. Then what work was being accomplished? This has nothing to do with work. Like, are they their employees or their friends? This is unhealthy. This is unhealthy. It says they all remain close. These are kind, decent, caring people who I'm proud to call my friends. And so we have reached officially the end. Now, again, guys, I don't know about you, but I'm more convinced than ever on the title Duchess difficult. I am also more convinced than ever before that Harry and Meghan have a very, very unhealthy dynamic with their staff, which I didn't before. I also know that some of their staff think they're a criminal organization and some of their staff think Meghan yells. I now know that some of their staff think that they see them as their children. I did not know those things before. There's a lot of things in there I did not know before. We know now that ARO is a completely separate enterprise from all the other stuff. So why did Harry and Meghan share all this? Well, I don't really, again, think this really had anything to do with Harry. I think it's Meghan. Meghan cannot let sleeping dogs lie. She cannot go and not respond to a negative story. And she didn't have a good response because she wanted to, again, force her former and current employees to take a loyalty test, basically. Tell your side to Us Weekly, or I know you participated in the Hollywood Reporter. I think people there, most of the people cited in that article, talked to both. I think they talked to both. And I think they said exactly what Meghan Markle wanted them to say, but I don't think as well that they didn't go too far either. You notice, especially at the beginning, I would say less so Ben, but Josh and Catherine were very, very careful about what they said. They were very generic, very bland. And it wasn't a ringing endorsement either. And I think that speaks volumes. These people had to do enough to get Harry and Meghan off their backs, particularly Meghan, but not enough to disregard what they told the Hollywood Reporter. And in the pantheon of reporting, the Hollywood Reporter is up here and Us Weekly is down here. You had to go with a gossip rag to get this story out there. And what's even more interesting is that, again, this didn't go to People, which has been Harry and Meghan's preferred publication. Now, again, this goes to a big question of, did Harry and Meghan's team basically give Us Weekly this story? And Us Weekly just ran with it and didn't really change anything. Because, again, if I wanted to help Meghan, I'd go, honey, you need to take this out, this out, this out. Don't say this. Like, keep it simple. That's what I would say, because I know that's what PR people would tell me to say. So really, this is Meghan. And I wonder, too, did Harry know this was going to drop? Did Harry know this was going to drop during his big PR push in New York City? Did he know that? Or did she wait to drop this while he was in New York City to steal the limelight from him? Because she wants the limelight on her constantly. And so I just don't believe anything there. I think this is a whole facade to cover up for the fact that things are going well behind the scenes. And again, how do we know this? We know this just based on just simple observation. People keep leaving. ARO is a disaster. They seem to have no direction. They've had flop after flop with Netflix. They've lost Spotify. And now they've even given us information that basically they sit on their butts, have meaningless meetings, and don't accomplish anything. I didn't know that before, but I know that now. Again, I don't think a PR person, a really good PR person, touched this. Because if a PR person touched this, they would run screaming, tear it, throw it in the fire, burn it up, and go, no, we're having a 2-sentence statement going, we don't believe these false narratives, whatever. There's no PR person running the ship, or it's just Meghan always running the ship, which again seems to scream that Duchess Difficult, the demanding dictator in heels, is absolutely accurate. Again, nothing here has dissuaded me from that. And I don't know about you. You are welcome to have your own opinion. I encourage you. I'll try to remember to link the article. Read it for yourself. I'll try to link the Hollywood Reporter one too. Read it for yourself. Let me know what you think, because I can't help but think 150% this was done by Meghan to try to salvage her reputation. But anybody with half a brain can see this has just made it worse. I bet you there are PR guys in Hollywood, because these are the best PR guys in the world. I bet you they are cringing at this. They're looking at this and cringing. How stupid could she be to release something like this? This is just bad. And of course, the press, Us Weekly, is like, hey, we got this massive exclusive. We're going to run with it. It'll be interesting to see if they get some of the Archewell staff members to actually go on camera. That'll be fascinating. But I also can't help but think that they just don't want to be part of the witch hunt Harry and Meghan are running. Well, in particular, I say Harry and Meghan, but it's really Meghan. I think, again, she is doing some sort of loyalty test right now. She's trying to suss out who is the weak link. And if they go on camera, if they say kind of vague, flattering things, then she might be happy and satisfied. But if I was Meghan, I'd tell her right now, I think some of those people are lying through their teeth. I think they're giving vague word salad answers so that they're not definitive, so that they can avoid being definitive, so that they can both speak to Hollywood Reporter and they can also speak to Us Weekly. They're all playing all sides, which again, to me, screams of an organization that is not healthy, because the employees feel like they can't speak their minds. So guys, again, let me know what you think about this. I'd be fascinated to get your thoughts. I was going to do a completely different video today, but I saw this and I was like, oh my gosh. So guys, again, we had to discuss. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Let me know your thoughts below. Thank you so much for watching. Don't forget about Ana Lucia Diamonds, and I shall see you guys again very, very soon. Bye.